Hello, hello. Can all of you hear me and see me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Everyone ready? We're almost getting started. We're just waiting for more people to join, but we will be starting in about 1 or 2 minutes. Today, our debate will be comprised of 5 sections. First, we will hear a general report on the first debate coming from the Stork. Then we will have a bunch of general questions for different teams. Then we will have audience questions. And we will have the audience questions through the Stork. Then we will follow with team-specific questions made by the debate club. And finally, wrapping up with short statements from each team, as well as the organizers of this debate.
Okay, hello everyone. Can you hear me? Yes? Can you hear me? Yes? No? Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, hello everyone and good evening. My name is Ecab and I'm the editor-in-chief of the Stork. and today I will have the pleasure of welcoming all of you to the final debate. First and foremost, to thank all of the teams, Campus Life, the IE IT department, the debate club, and all of you watching us from home, as well as your friends and family, and anyone who has anyway been involved in this election cycle. This is not something that can be achieved through only one person, but is through the entirety of your participation that we can ensure the continued integrity of what we're trying to do. For that, we thank all of you for responding to our polls, for your questions, for your continued investment in our coverage of this election, which had its first high point last week's first big debate. So before I hand the floor to the debate club, I would first like to offer you a brief recap of what happened last Thursday. The Stork and the debate club used the debate as a key opportunity to question the campaigns on their rhetoric, their policy, and their overall direction of their campaigns. Teams, while having some real difficulties, sought to previous administration striving to achieve the goals of the past, such as attendance participation, while introducing new and ambitious projects like the IE Parliament. Team Black urged the debate to elaborate, was used to elaborate on some of their most out-of-the-box separate budget in the admissions process and a streamlined communication. Team Black also used the opportunity to rebuff a number of accusations that had been sent their way throughout the period of campaigning. Team White sought to make things clear and emphasize transparency. Their proposal of a monthly press conference to make involvement a key thing was something that they elaborated at length. Not to mention the Housing Bureau will seek to help students when trying to find a place to live, both in Segovia and in Madrid. A democratic spring ball and the institution of IE ambassadors put forth by the Team Red, both proposals seeking to more student involvement in the ongoings of the university on all fronts. Finally, the sports and standardization as their key proposals, with one ensuring, okay, it keeps lagging, I've just been informed. With one ensuring an increased sense of campus spirit and the second ensuring equal treatment. Throughout the debate, much of the questioning was sent in the direction of teams Red and Black, whose innovative proposals incited inquiry from student government and candidates to chat. And today, and Justin Morgan in the latter part of this big final debate, sizing all of your proposals with regards to their nuances and their attainability. Last debate saw a lot of proposals whose legitimacy was checked by both the members of the student government and ourselves. For that reason, we the team that they are within their right to propose whatever it is that they want. But all of us, nevertheless, exist in a framework which imposes certain limitations on our autonomy. This is to say that just because you propose it doesn't mean that you can do it. With this, I would once again like to thank you all for coming today, and will now hand the floor to the debate club to commence the first section of the debate.
Hello, Ecab. Thank you for such a comprehensive report on what was the first debate and pretty much the proposals of our participants. It is definitely our role as the audience and IE community to keep the democracy alive. So I'm first going to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Lujan. I'm a third-year PLE OLB student and currently the president of IE Debate Club Madrid. So we're going to begin today's debate with what will be a general section on questions for all the teams. But before doing so, I would like to thank all the organizing team, the Debate Club Segovia, Campus Life, Stork, as well as the participants, and most of all, the audience watching us from home. So going back to the rules of this first section, we will go into what will be general questions for every team. I would like to remind you that it's important for you to turn off your microphones whenever you're not speaking, and that you will be given 3 warnings. After the 3 warnings, and unfortunately, you will be moved to participant without giving the chance to continue participating. The same thing goes for the respect of each other's time. You will only be allowed to speak whenever granted the time to do so. So beginning with the questions, the format that we're going to follow will be in the following one. You're going to raise your hands, and whoever raises their hands first will be allowed to, and just following the activity. So the first question will follow. Through the years, most of the Madrid community have claimed not to be represented by the government. So how will your team change this and differ from other candidates running from this election? I will now receive those hands of the team wishing to answer. If there are none, we might proceed to do it electorally. Okay, María Paula. So we'll begin with Team Gold. You will have 2 minutes to answer your question.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Well, today I would like to begin with thanking everyone that's here today, thanking the Stork, the Debate Club. You guys have done an amazing job making an online campaign, available and perfect for us.
Sorry, it's lagging a little bit.
Lagging? Wait. Let me connect to my 4G.
I don't know if the audience managed to hear, but I couldn't. Sorry, do you think you could repeat your answer? I think I might be having connection issues. Seems that María Paula has she came back. Okay, we'll repeat the question very
How about now?
briefly. How will your team change the lack of representation from the student government reflected on students, and how will this differ from other candidates running for this student government election?
So, can I begin? Thank you. So, I think that the most important issue we have is that the student body doesn't really get to know the student government that's representing them. Like, we see them and they're standing right there and they're the face of the university, but we really do not get to know them. So, for instance, by the creation of events between Madrid and Segovia campus, we could really get to know the student body by implementing monthly meetings with the student representatives. Because, for instance, I'm a student representative and I've noticed that the general meetings we have with the student government are not effective because it's also with the vice rector and the dean, and the ideas and the issues don't pull through. So the idea is to have monthly meetings so we can have like a continuous feedback and improve the systems that the university already has. And also, for instance, organizing more fundraisers and just being more active in the community life. And I think that one of the strongest suits of my team is that we have students that are involved in universities in the university in different ways. For instance, Blanca and Lucas are parts of the athletics, so they understand a lot about that. For instance, I'm a student representative, so I have a better understanding of the academics. We have Loti, who's incredible in organizing events that could bring
I don't know if
together.
It's lagging for everyone else. Let me check chat. Okay.
I already connected to my 4G.
You still
Good? Okay.
Well, it seems like for the audience it's working fine, so it might be just my connection. You still have about a minute to continue if you wish to do so.
Oh, I do. I think that is one of the main reasons why 2 of our main proposals are called to two campuses, one student body, and also the communication and transparency focus we want to give to the university. We also believe that the way information is presented to the students is not as effective as it could be. For instance, there's a university calendar that is not user-friendly, so students are never aware of what is going on. And that's what the student government that we propose, the student government that Team Gold wants to bring to you, is one that is active. So we're right there with you. And not only in community development and academics, but in general. So I think that's how I would like to start. Thank you so much.
Okay, before continuing with the next question, we're gonna call those teams who wish to rebut or comment upon María Paula's speech. If there is any question or comment on the house, please raise your hand. Take into account that we have planned 5 minutes for rebuttals so that we can keep this debate flowing. So Sebastian, you would have the first comment.
I'd like to first of all thank everyone for joining us, and first of all I commend on what María Paula has said. I completely agree with part of her ideas and her ideology that it's important the student government is connected with the student body, and that you have members who are part of the athletics and academics as well. But I'd like to say from my behalf and from Team Black that a lot of us have worked not only with the student government and, let's say, with the student body, but also with private enterprises in order to facilitate that social connection. I mean, your point about two campuses being one body, you need two Instagrams for that. It's one of our proposals, that we need to actually direct the information to the people and make sure that they're actually targeted not only as a whole university, but also for their campus. We think it's far more effective, and it would actually motivate people, since they wouldn't just be targeted in news that wouldn't necessarily directly affect them. And another reason for this is generally you would have, let's say, talks which are, I mean, I have a few friends who organized LEAP conference, which I think is fantastic. And the problem was the transmission of the information wasn't as direct and wasn't available to them. And a lot of people would find out too late. And I think the role of the student government is really to be active, and you need not only a good representation between the year groups and different clubs, but also in terms of nationalities. And as you can see, Team Black is completely diverse. We have a Lebanese, a Mexican, a Spaniard, a German, a Turkish. We really try and represent all the groups, even the French. And I think that's really important in understanding and actually getting to the people to participate. Thank you.
And Paula, now you have, well, as long as you want to continue replying to Sebastian's comments, you have about 3 minutes now.
So I actually do agree with a lot of what you say, but I don't think two Instagrams is a viable option, as in the past debate it was mentioned that, if I'm not mistaken, the administration already said that carrying one account was already complicated enough and enough of a struggle. So what would be like your plan, backup plan, if communicating information through two different Instagrams cannot be applied?
Sorry, I wasn't sure if I'm allowed a rebuttal to a rebuttal.
No, that would not be allowed. We're now going to move to another team who wishes to rebut or add anything to María Paula's comments. Ricardo?
Well, hello. On behalf of Team Yellow, we are very happy to be here. I'm sure that this time there will not be any tech issues as last time, which was really unfortunate. But well, María Paula, I agree with everything that you said, and that we need to actually create more events every week. But with the situation with coronavirus, I think that the public gatherings will be actually cancelled until the next year. It's from what I assume, and as you have seen, the situation has gotten worse. So from Team Yellow, we have actually developed a whole plan of lives of people joining the student body into account. How does Team Gold actually going to implement that? Because as we have seen, you have only posted stories and not like actual activities to demonstrate the student body that you will be active during these exceptional times.
Good. María Paula.
Thank you, Ricardo. Honestly, I think that's a very valid question, and I'm impressed by the job you've done with your Instagram. It's quite amazing. It's beautiful to watch. But I would like to state that we have already come up with like several plans. I think we can I feel like your question also connects most of all to what happens if we continue online. You know, what will we do? How are we going to improve students' life if that happens? And I think that first we have to focus on how with the tech department we can continue to improve the Adobe Connect system we have in order to have participation, you know, those things are taken into account, be more effective and better graded and stuff like that. Also, second, we should create online events. So for instance, like what you guys did, I think recently, a FIFA online tournament. Also, for instance, the music club that I know you and I, we both have friends in the music club, and we could do concerts online. We were thinking also about bringing the clubs in. So the clubs can start creating challenges for everyone that's involved. You don't have to be part of the club specifically in order to participate in these challenges. An idea of like continue your community life as much as possible. And not only this, but I think it's also important to implement every month some meetings with all the student government, with the class representatives, in order that all the concerns of the students are being heard.
Sorry, we have to move to the next question, which actually relates to what María Paula was saying. So the question is about the different clubs on campus. As you may know, we currently have more than 200 clubs on campus. So the question is, how will your team manage to address all the different concerns and interests within the student body, as well as giving priority and importance to all the different clubs? Since we have already heard a bit from Sebastian and Ricardo, we will now recognize Adam. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, so I think I'm going to try and draw upon some of our experiences within the club to answer this question, or within clubs to answer this. So as you know, I was actually the assistant editor-in-chief for student affairs. I'm in charge of helping clubs kind of get their promotions on the Stork. We have Adimar with the IE Engages Club as its president, and Druvi as well. We have Abdul with the IE Think podcast. And so we already have quite a bit of experience dealing with all of the clubs, or dealing with a majority of different clubs around IE. And we recognize and we know how this works and how we can work within that. And what I'd like to propose, and what our team has proposed in the past, is that we work more with the Stork, because right now the Stork is one of the best options we have for informing students of what's going on around university. It's one of the best options we have for how clubs can expose and express themselves right now. I think if you look at the Stork's new webpage, there's a clubs tab actually, where each club can send in articles, can inform students of what's happening, can inform them of events that are coming up that they might want to take place in. So I think I want to draw upon that experience and work a lot with Stork and with other clubs and collaborate with them more, so that we have more experiences, we have more options, we have more cross collaborations, and we'll just see more come from the university and more options for students.
But Adam, are there any things to wish to add? Sebastian?
I'd just like to say I couldn't agree more. The Stork has done a fantastic job, and I think it is really important that it continues to do such a job, especially with coronavirus, as Ricardo had pointed out. In terms of online, I mean, is it feasible? We don't even know. The university, as of yet, has still said it will continue in September. Realistically, yes, we might not have online classes till 2021. No one really knows. So the situation of saying, is it possible or not, it's very, very difficult to answer. Your point about with addressing the clubs and promoting them, I couldn't agree more, but also you need sponsors for that. You need also a direct line. This is why we've issued that. We've proposed a real direct line with the student government, that anyone, not only clubs, but also people who want to start initiatives. We've been starting to talk with the Global Society in terms of starting new, maybe even on the academic side, recommending a new degree. I think it's important that we also think about the Adobe Connect. What Maple mentioned about improving it is obviously going to be fundamental in how we can better our learning and get the most out of this. It's not easy. We're all coping with it. I'm absolutely awful when it comes to this, like a belly connector, and finally getting the grips of it. I think it's at least important that we maybe get more training. maybe that it's not all online, but there's certain other ways to develop it. You made a few other points in terms of the clubs, and what were your main points in terms of the priorities of them? How would you, for instance, prioritize a certain club over another? Do you think that now, obviously, that we have a limitation when it comes to athletics, do you think that maybe they should be less prioritized than others? What would you recommend, Adam?
Well, in terms of priority, I don't really see that any club should be given priority over another. To be honest, in times like these, I understand we don't really have the options of like the athletics clubs or some of these clubs that need to have in-person interactions happening. That's unfortunately just a problem of coronavirus right now. We do have, and I would like to commend some of the clubs like the Eco Club and the SDG Club and the debate clubs and the Stork for being able to host and to do some things online, and they've become creative in how they've responded to this pandemic. And, maybe it would be fair in the future that because these clubs have gotten to do things, maybe, more attention should be given, or maybe some, leniency or priority should be given to the athletics or to other clubs in the future when we do return to university. But at least as a standing priority, I don't see that any one club should be given priority.
That's something that is going to be very hard to manage, and I've noticed so far, it's something that most of student governments have struggled with. Filiberto, would you like to add on
that? Yes, first of all, I would like to thank Victoria and Ecab for hosting this event and all the participants, because you will be listening to us for 3 hours. Thanks a lot for that. And I just wanted to point out that Adam's and Sebastian's points are extremely good, but what I think is the main problem is that clubs aren't getting enough support from IE. For instance, when I tried funding the paddle club, I had lots of issues with that. When Sava Pavlovich, he's one of the founders of the ski club, and he had lots of issues with that. And people actually couldn't follow the process of how you do it, how you actually go to the ski trip, what you have to pay, because there's no communication at all. So definitely I think, and I don't know if you guys agree, that what we need to improve a lot is the support that IE gives to the clubs.
I agree completely with you. I can state from the debate club on our behalf, we had numerous problems getting funding for our trips to Geneva and to Tokyo. Unfortunately, Tokyo was canceled, but that's the case with a lot of clubs right now, is we're not seeing the support from IE. We hear from IE that we support our clubs and we love our initiatives, but they don't fund us. They make it very painful and very onerous, honestly, to get any funding, any support, any communications, and they make it this maze of having to deal with paperwork or having to deal with other issues. So I honestly think it's quite sad on behalf of the university how some of these clubs are treated. And what I hope to do is with the community development officers, when if this team is elected, is that we try and streamline the process for creating clubs, for earning money, for creating funds, and we just kind of make the situation a lot more easier for students to understand, for them to access clubs, and for them to essentially start their own clubs, because I know right now that can be difficult as well.
Adam, we have to move now to the next question, which concerns transparency. One of the things that is important within the student government is to be accessible and available for students. So the question concerns the ways that your team will be available for the student body, as well as your transparency and communication with the same. If you would like to answer, Ricardo.
Thank you very much for the question, Victoria. So I think that if you go to our Instagram, that it actually was made with a lot of passion and a lot of effort, Team Yellow Team, if you want to check it out, you can see that one of our main values is transparency. So we actually believe that to be well communicated with the student body is actually key to achieve this. That's why we actually want to create the IE Parliament. That's why actually we want with communications to every week to show what we're doing. That's why myself, I'll give a recap every week or every 2 weeks of what we're doing. That's why our one of our general proposals is clear communication, because we believe that transparency, even more in these times that we need to do everything online, is actually key to have a good communication with the students. Because if we're not transparent, then we're not communicating the right message and we're not representing actually the student body.
And I think that it's important for the student government to be there for the student. So we will now give the floor to Mape.
Thank you, Ricardo. You make some very good points. The reason why I think both one of the main fact proposals we have is transparency communication is to tackle this issue. Our idea is to publish a monthly report that would be done in a video through Instagram, but also we would like to conduct a survey with the student body in order to determine what the method of communication they prefer. Because, for instance, we've seen that newsletters, only a small percentage of students open them, and if they do, maybe they don't read the whole newsletter. So that's one of the main reasons why students never are aware of what the student government is currently working on. And I think the implementation of this monthly report is a viable solution. Not only this, but for instance, we would like to do also surveys about how the student body perceives the student government's job that we have performed every 2 months, for instance. So we could do three per semester. The creation of an I-Parliament, I'm sorry, but I think I will have to disagree, and my team also disagrees, because of the fact that if already student representative meetings are quite inefficient.
Sorry for interrupting you. It seems like a lot of our audience is not able to listen. So maybe if you take off the headphones, I don't know if you're wearing any, or the other way around.
What happens if I go closer to the computer? Better?
Better.
Much better. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess my team and I would just have. Yeah. Okay. I guess my team and I would just have to disagree on the creation of an I-Parliament, because, as I said, it's already quite inefficient, the student representative system that we have that talks once a semester with the vice rector, the dean, and also a representative from the student government. And not only this, but I guess this creates more of a, how can I call this? I don't know, like, I don't think, how would you motivate students, for instance, to attend to this parliament? Or how would you choose them? What would be the criteria? I don't know. I think you would have to follow the idea.
Ricardo, you can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Magler, for your comment. So I think the opposite actually with the I-Parliament, because the I-Parliament will create three things. The first one is more bargaining power with the university, because if we put every representative, every 2 weeks or every 1 month, we can actually see what is happening inside of the student body and what are the necessities of each degree. Second, it creates accountability with what you were saying before, that we need, and it also goes by the hand of this topic, because we need to, for the student government to be accountable for what they're doing, and in case that if they're not doing their job, actually have a body that is watching them and making sure that they're doing their job. And to answer your question of who will they be, actually the representatives will form this parliament. I know that you could think that it could be very ineffective with the vice rectors, but if the vice rectors want to come, perfect, they're more than invited. But we want to actually implement the parliament to have maybe every 2 weeks one meeting to discuss, pass resolutions, actually talk a little bit about the life of the IA students, and that way we can actually get feedback of our work. Because at the end, if we don't have that feedback, we don't know if we're doing our job correctly or not.
Before moving to the next comment, we have to be careful when we discuss the idea about the parliament, especially taking into account that IE is already bureaucratic enough. I don't know if any team would like to comment on this. Philip? Turn off the microphone.
Yes, I just wanted to say that, Ricardo, your idea is good, but I'm sure that it's too idealistic for this university, because, and for any university, we can't make a parliament even if it's of all delegates and meet every 2 weeks. What, for example, I call transparency is asking people, are we actually doing well on a monthly report of the student government? And they will tell you actually the truth. Or what I call transparencies, for example, what we've done recently, that is ask for people for proposals. For example, architecture students, I didn't know how much a struggle they are having to get equipment and to actually be part of this community. And these are things that recent student governments haven't actually seen because the communication is not as good. And with the parliament, for example, the bureaucracy would only increase, which I think is probably the biggest problem in IE.
Thank you, Filiberto. Can I answer? Okay. Thank you, Filiberto. I'm afraid that I'll disagree because at the end, it goes by hand with the representative role in class and outside of class. I'm sure that everyone that runs for representatives, as for example, Adam has done it, myself, we are here and we wanted to run and actually represent our degree because we love to give back to the community what the community has given us. So I don't think that if someone is running for a student representative and actually wants to have an impact on the community, then they wouldn't have a problem to actually meet every 2 weeks to discuss what are the real problems, because it actually benefits their degree and what they're doing, because the role is to actually expose to the administration what are the necessities and what are the problems that their own class is having. So why don't we put them together every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks to actually solve these problems and get more ideas, because when we have more ideas, then we can decide on the right one. On the other hand, I have been reading the chat, and we can actually change the name of the parliament if you don't agree with it. We can change it maybe with the student council, or we can keep it as meetings with the student representatives. The point is to actually get the feedback from the students and from what are the necessities of each degree.
Ricardo, we will now move to the next question. So the question is about the proposals going on, actually. We have noticed that many of your ideas are emulating or pretty much copying things that are already being done by the university, be it the central administration or the clubs. So how will your proposal change or add up to the things already being done by the community? You have the floor. Sebastian.
Sorry, thank you. I wasn't sure. I'd like to thank you for your question. I think the first proposal that I should bring up is the Student Government Fund. This is something that we've thought of and we think could addition the actual student government money and budget that would be given by the university. This is pertinent for many reasons. One of which that it actually address the situation of no funding, which Adam, you had previously mentioned, how clubs were willing and extra funding. This is a clear way to improve it, and that money can be used in certain ways, not only for athletics or academics, but also for these different clubs. We even talked about with the Global Society of getting maybe an environmental specialist, which is now something that's extremely important considering the world and considering this pandemic, something that could help the university. I think in terms of funding of the university, it's very difficult. We address the situation of the bureaucracy of Spain in general, not only this private university. It's extremely hard to push things, but it does help when you have certain partnerships. And this is what we've tried to prove. We don't necessarily have proposals. We have partnerships. We already have things concrete and that students can actually benefit from. I hand the floor back to you, Victoria.
Okay, Philip, you can comment.
Yes, I just wanted to say that the idea of partnerships, it's pretty much original from Black Team, and I really appreciate giving some originality to this campaign. But I think that the problem of that proposal is that you are mainly focusing on partnerships, when in reality we need to focus much more on how are we, let's say, how are you actually going to implement these partnerships to improve university? That's my question.
Thank you for your question. Very easily answered on many occasions. If you look at certain partnerships we have, one is the M&U partnership, which actually helps students get less with discounts on their rent, which is something that helps their community and helps students actually find their best apartment. So many other things. We're actually announcing, and this will be out on our Instagram in a few hours in the following morning, we have a partnership with Uber Eats. This is proof. I mean, these are things that students actually need. I mean, let's face it, like right now during this pandemic, what do we survive of? The delivery. It's the future, and especially if this goes online, these are things that will help the students, and there's no way of denying it. The partnerships are things that not only help our life, but could also help our academics. Our willingness to work with alumni, which has helped secure these partnerships, is also proof of how we can better our community. One of our proposals to work with the master students and have a certain mentorship society and a mentorship program to actually help you. I mean, for instance, if you want to maybe become a diplomat, Filiberto, this can help you. You can come in contact with certain people who are maybe in the Spanish government and help your transition for that. I mean, let's face it, our world revolves around connections, and IE should benefit from this. We are an academic institution, but also a private one which has its perks, and we shouldn't forget that.
Ricardo, you have the floor.
Okay, Sebastian, thank you for answering all the questions. I want to ask you if you actually know how the student government budget or bank account works. Because with the problem nowadays is that the student government is formed by several budgets in Campus Life, the Vice Rector Miguel Larrañaga, or Antonio de Castro. When it comes to money, you cannot touch as a student government the bank account. If you go and recollect 20,000 euros, that I think is amazing, then you cannot put it into your account. So into the account of the university. So how are you going to manage this money? Is it going to be in the account of Victor Heyman or yourself as the second president? Thank you.
First of all, definitely it will not be in my name or Victor's name. That is not something going towards transparency, which is something that we advocate. I completely agree on your point about how the budget is allocated. That's normal. I mean, certain parts of the budget, we've been in contact with Jambayo and others in the administration, how that works. And a certain amount has to go towards the athletics department. Others will be used for instance, 50,000 euros, if I'm not mistaken, is the budget given for the student ball, which is something that maybe can't be changed, but maybe this extra 20,000 can be held in an escrow account, and that can be easily found out what is better, if it's better in terms of tax situations, what would be the most profitable for the university students. But as you point out, it's important that it is differentiated from the main university account, that there is a more leeway in where we can spend that money and where the students believe that money will actually benefit the society most, whether that's clubs, athletics, that will be dependent on the year. In terms of athletics this year, in terms of us being held in quarantine, that might not be the case. We might want to have certain technology experts improve the university.
Time for another comment. Paula?
Okay, so I think this is something that a lot of people are wondering, and when I checked at your Instagram, I noticed that most of the funding, all of the funding for this 20,000 euros comes from people consuming food from a partnership you created with La La La, and from people attending events. As this will probably be not possible because of the current situation, but not only that, what happens if people are not eager to go to the events? What happens if people are not consuming food from La La La? What will be your plan B or your backup plan to collect this 20,000 euros you are telling the student body you will be able to collect for the usage of, as you said, for clubs and stuff like that?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for your question and start on a more optimistic note that in the event we could go back in September. If you have been to a Romania event, because I'm pretty sure we've been together, it is always packed. It's an event that creates a huge amount of profit. And in terms of the La 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 profits, if you actually read the proposals, we would propose that students would have their class dinners there. That would guarantee a certain amount. Certain clubs, that can be differentiated. If people don't want to go to Liberty anymore, then they can choose another one. That is something that the student government can work with. Now, in a more realistic and more, unfortunately, fatalistic chance that we don't have the chance to create these events and rather motivate the students to go, that is why we have certain partnerships with delivery companies. And foremost being Uber Eats. That is a huge company that we can recall a huge amount. Not only that, but I have actually a friend who has created this amazing initiative of turning her hobby, which is baking, into something that can actually create something. I mean, she's decided to fund it for coronavirus, and I think that's a fantastic idea. I mean, there are other ways, and plenty of small ways in order to reach that 20,000. Whether it's through talks, whether it's through teaching. Many of us have many skills that are not necessarily purely academic. Maybe you can learn a certain language online, and that can be paid for. There are so many different ways for us to address that small problem of maybe not being able to create an event. As we've seen with Culture and through the Yellow Team, their fantastic initiative of having live DJs. These things can be ways of maybe incentivizing people to maybe chip in, contribute to the community. I hand the floor back to Victoria. Thank you.
We will go now to the next question, which for now goes to Team Red, as we seem to be almost over with this section, which is related to the IE spirit. So many of you have claimed throughout your campaign that you're gonna increase the IE spirit, and you want to make sure that the community is engaged. So how are you planning to do this, and why do you consider that this will succeed?
Yeah, so I totally agree that somehow improving the IE spirit is one of the things that student governments have tried to do. I remember when my brother came here around 8 years ago, he kept on telling me how incredible IE was, but there's always this problem that many IE people don't get to involve to uni. Why? Probably there are many reasons, and we cannot go to every single individual and try to approach them, but for sure I think we can do many things. For example, what we want to do is improve the social networks of clubs and unite them all in a single page. For example, it's very hard to follow the IU athletics of Segovia from Madrid, the football from Madrid, the basketball from Segovia. At the end, you need to follow 24,000 pages just to get some information. So what we want to do is one single page that actually can englobe everything. And as well, in order to improve, for example, the attendance to sports, which I think is something quite important in order for our uni to improve, we would like to create somehow a fan base and create some, like, for example, incentivize people to go. For example, creating an after party, a small with the players, letting people go in the bus with the players, and if there are more needed, I will fairly provide with more. And basically, I think that we really need to make people go, and the only way we can is actually spending some money.
Philly, you actually still have 30 seconds of your time if you would like to make use of that. If not, we're moving to... No?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything would like to comment? Adam, you have the floor.
Okay, I agree with you, Filiberto, that we need to do more in order to get students to have more of a spirit, and we need to work hard to try and get students to maybe cheer for their teams and to have this university network. And I mean, from Team White, we already have 2 cheerleaders as a part of our team. But I want to ask, because the Stork has already created now this club page that is allowed for the clubs and athletics, I should say, to promote themselves and to give more opportunities. And so your solution besides that would be to spend more money. Where would you propose getting this money from? Because as we've already discussed, the university is not very good at handing out money for clubs, and is not very good about spending money on students in these cases. So how would you possibly convince them to spend quite a bit of money to start transporting students, to try to establish this network and to try and make this IE spirit? Thank you.
Okay, thanks again, Adam, for your question. Basically, this is all going in a spiral and round and round and round. The problem is money, of course. The thing is, IE actually has money. They have lots of money. Each student, only between us, we are spending 100,000 euros a year. So I think we really have lots of money. We shouldn't spend it in stupid things like making so much publicity in YouTube. Every time we go to YouTube, we see IE. What I think we should actually improve is what we have now in our university. we shouldn't. I personally, for example, I don't think we should have built a tower. That's actually quite a stupid thing to do. But now that we've done it, we see how much budget IE has. Why don't they spend it in, for example, sports, in equipment, in the IE Ecological Club, which they have such a little budget, and they always struggle to do whatever they can. So I really think that IE has money. We just need to fight for it.
Sorry, I didn't hear. I guess it's my. Did you say my name?
Ricardo, Team Yellow.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Filiberto, I actually before had the same question as Adam, but what do you think about making these events instead of making the university doing it, being self-sufficient in the sense that, for example, our team, the Yellow team, has partnered up with Scope, with Madrid, with Culture to do these kind of after parties, as well as Black team and Gold team has done it with other companies. Don't you think that this is a better way? Because at the end, you're calling stupid the way of the university, the way that the university works, and at the end, how much money goes to the student government is based on the budgets of other people. So I don't think that the student government has a much say on this, but more that it should look forward to actually have self-sufficient events.
The question, Ricardo. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And that's what I told Sebastian, that bringing partnerships or sponsors to IE is one thing that I admire from Team Black and also from your team. It's something that Victor has really proved that he can do well. And I think if IE unfairly doesn't want to provide the clubs with a bit more, I'm not asking for much more, then for sure we would need to look for partnerships. But I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that IE has enough money to provide the rugby club with a coach, for example. Or I remember when I was in the indoor football club, we didn't even have a coach. We didn't even have place to play at the beginning. So at the end of the day, I think it's a bit of a disaster how they're organizing it. I don't think it's stupid, but I really think that they can improve a lot in that sense.
Okay, before moving to the next section, we can all agree that there has to be an efficient management of money, and whoever gets elected has to make sure that the budget is being spent effectively and supporting those initiatives that the student body encourages. We'll now have back with us Ecab and Justin, who will represent the Stork and bring us a bunch of questions from the student body.
Hello? Can you hear me? Cool. Hello. I'll just wait for Justin to be here, and then we will begin with the primary questions that the student body has asked us and that we will now ask to you. So we will begin first with some general questions dealing with topics that that cut across the majority of your campaigns, and then we will go individually and kind of be annoying with regards to each of your individual points and proposals that you put forth. So to begin with, I will ask the first question, and this is for everyone, and it's already slightly been touched upon, but I would like for a little bit of more elaboration. There's not a negligent chance that that in September we will not return to the university as a result of the recent crisis. So in light of that, and bearing in mind that a lot of your proposals, especially with regards to Team Gold, Team Black, and Team Red more specifically, revolve around community organized events, how will your teams foster community spirit and engage the student body in a non-existing campus or in a digital campus? And I will give the floor to Ricardo first.
You have 1.5 minutes to answer.
Thank you very much, Ecab, for your question. So I think that the way that Yellow Team could actually get more students involved in the community is the way that we have done it through our Instagram account. If you go to our Instagram account, you're able to see that we organized a meeting with a coach PCC to actually explain what to do during these exceptional times, how to deal with stress and anxiety, as well as also the team wide did it we brought a DJ to actually put some music for you to be entertained during your Saturday afternoon. Also, we have done lives explaining our proposals. So I actually think that we have a pretty good concept of how to deal with the social media and how to get students involved in the social media. And I think that obviously we wouldn't forget about the academics, because obviously with Adobe Connect and everything that is happening, we can actually put more and more effort to increase and ease up the academic life of the students. But in the community, I would still go on with the plan that we have had to actually bring more events into the virtual life, maybe with culture, with Scope, with Madrid, our main partners in this campaign. As well, I want to invite everyone here to tomorrow's live jamming session. That it will be very interesting, and we will have some students of AI to demonstrate their talent.
Any other team would like to add? Team Gold?
Thank you. Okay, wait. Sorry. Okay, sorry, I pressed something. Okay, no. I'm sorry. Wait, give me a second. Oh, okay. So basically, the way we would like to interact with students, not only in community development but in academics, is let's first focus on academics. It would be incredible if, for instance, certain conferences or certain speakers could be live streamed through Zoom or through Adobe Connect or many other services. Not only that, but as stated by Ricardo's team has done an amazing job with their social media. And I think that giving the clubs more predominance, not only through the student government account, through the Stork, for example, we also had this idea of publishing, how can I call this, this kind of list where we have all the contacts you need in order for you to see what's happening in every club. So for instance, we can have the leader of the club, the Instagram. This is a way people can interact more by creating challenges through Instagram, which I think is one of the most predominant social medias nowadays that we use. Also by, for instance, those jam sessions that Ricardo just proposed. We can also get guest speakers, and I think that if we continue online, even though we prefer to be, optimistic, I think we have a very solid base in order to at least make the best of we can of this experience and being in quarantine and all.
Adam, you can continue.
Thank you. I'd like to echo what Ricardo and Maple have said. I think it's really important that we need to be able to be flexible if we're not able to come to campus in September, if that is the case. I think what we need to do is we need to focus on changing things so that they're better for students online and that they have better online experiences. So if we can, if we aren't dedicating funds from the student government towards a Freshers Week because we no longer have a Freshers Week because freshers aren't on campus, then maybe we can start diverting funds to the clubs and we can start diverting funds to their initiatives online. We know that several Women in Business, Debate Club, Eco Club, they've all started to host things online. And so if we can start funding them so that maybe they have, Zoom Pro, or if they have, if we have better experiences on Adobe because we can buy more server space from Microsoft itself. If we can start investing money that we would otherwise have spent during that time into online services that would be better for our students, I think that's something that's important we need to do.
Filiberto, do you wish to do so, or? Okay.
Yes, as they have already said, basically what we need to do is try to improve our social network. I actually think every team should have 2 communication managers, since in these times, especially in these coronavirus times, it's going to be really hard to communicate with those students. And if we are honest, it's going to be really hard. For example, many of the main clubs like the football club or the rugby club, we can do funny challenges or things like that, but to be honest, we can't continue with them. What I really think is that we should focus on improving our academics. And for example, the fact of using Adobe, many people have complained about constant lagging with the professors or similar things. There's an app, I really can't remember, that Fernando Pastor told us, and it's developed by IE. And this app, I don't know why, for which reason, but they are not implementing it. So on that aspect, we really need to improve on how online classes are being followed, because actually right now it's really hard to do so. And as well, I know it's really hard, but at the end of the day, we are not back in September. I think whoever wins the student government should try to fight for the reduction of the tuition fees, at least until we are back. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be, I don't know how many months in which IE has probably 20% of the expenses, and they are getting as much money as them. So I really think that's the main point we should fight for.
And finally, Sebastian.
Thank you. I also would like to say how I think the university has maybe reacted not as quickly as it could have, but it finally reacted and addressed the situation of time zones. I mean, we are an international university and we have students who are back in Singapore, back in Colombia. I think it's important that we try and use the best technology, as all of them have echoed. In terms of community, another thing for academics is one of our proposals to actually vet the new students coming in, having an input, having a say in actually thinking about what kind of degrees are coming in, what kind of people are coming with certain or different rather education systems. You can't compare someone who did IB maths higher to someone who did an ab initio level or only went up to GCSE maths. This is something that also needs to be recouped and maybe readdressed, especially with new degrees that are coming in, especially with duals. Another point I think is extremely important, which Filiberto was touching on, and this is a technology which was developed by MIT, which actually certain students in behavioral science are actually beginning to use with edX, which is, I believe, the name for that program. It's something that, I mean, the master's program is very familiar with and could, in my perspective, should be easily enough implemented within the bachelor programs. In terms of fostering more community, I couldn't agree more with the Instagram. Filiberto, your point about 2 communications officers, this is the point of having 2 actual separate Instagrams. Because although now it's different because we're not in 2 campuses and we're all across the globe, this could facilitate the stream of information that one Instagram would be bombarded with. This is also a difference that actually some of our friends, I mean, Ricardo and María Paula, I presume you're all still in Segovia. I've been talking to you recently, and you know, it would be nice once the restrictions start to ease, which is realistic, and already in Spain they've started to, that actually there is a community and you can maybe initiate or at least propose for students to actually volunteer, those who are not at risk. I have friends who have volunteered in certain ways to help the community. So I mean, in saying that we only or can only focus on academics is not true, because we can help the community around us. And I think it's extremely important that we have that input, whether it's in Madrid, Segovia, or around the world. Thank you.
Moving to the next question of Stork.
So now we're going to go into like sort of individual questions for each team. So Ecab, you started off. Oh, no. In some shape, all of your proposals have something to do and encourage community building, community development. And a lot of times clubs have historically received minimal engagement, with a lot being deserted or sort of abandoned. So how do you plan to address this like apathy and increase engagement in already existing clubs and opportunities for community development? Ricardo.
Don't forget to turn on your microphone. We cannot hear you.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you very much for your question, Justin. I think that the best example that we could take is the Stork. I think that you went from actually having 500 followers last year to now having more than 1,500. So I think that clear communication is the path to do this. Here in Team Yellow, we actually with María Laura, who has done a beautiful job with our Instagram, a beautiful job with planning the activities. We believe that communication is key to actually make all the students involved in the activities. We actually plan to have a calendar, a more effective calendar that it will show all the students the big events, as well as promoting more campus groups, because that's a platform where the clubs expose their ideas and their initiatives.
Okay. Maple.
So we have I think we have 2 or 3 which I think really address this issue, and is that on our Instagram you can see that we also proposed the improvement of the university calendar, which you can already access through Campus Live, but it's not user friendly. No one really sees it, and also it doesn't have events that are also outside of campus groups. So, for example, we would like to improve this by creating a calendar that can be sent through the groups in WhatsApp, that can be published in Instagram, and that way communication of events and awareness of the clubs that are going on at IE increases. Not only this, but we have a specific for instance, athletics clubs that we would like to implement a contract system. And this is because sometimes people join a club and it's a privilege to be part of that club, but then they don't commit, as you just stated. And the idea of this contract is that it's not legally binding, but in order for you to be able to really be part of the team and be considered, for instance, in the athletics department, in this case, for games and stuff like that, you need to have a certain level of attendance to practice and stuff like that. Because if not, how can you say you're a member of a club if you're not an active participant? Even though this is only specific towards athletics, we think we can also, develop a kind of system that also applies to, for instance, the debate club, or for instance, last year that we had an EU political think tank. Thank you.
Great. Adam.
Yeah, I would just like to echo what Ricardo and Maple have been saying. I think it's critical that we include the Stork and that we continue to use them as one of the major platforms for clubs, particularly for athletics, so that people can know what's happening and what events are going on. Because I know this year student government hasn't been great at coordinating what's happening with the clubs, because there's been this lack of communication. In order to get into, there's a club WhatsApp group, or club coordinator WhatsApp group, I should say. But in order to get into that group and in order to communicate, you have to be the president. Well, in some cases, you have multiple clubs that have multiple leaders, or you have one person that is in charge of these things, or one person that's in charge of one thing and one person that's in charge of another. And so right now you don't have this streamlined communication and you don't have this sense of connectedness. And especially, the students can sense that. And you see that with freshers, especially because you don't see a lot of freshers joining clubs originally. You don't see a lot of them that want to come to a early debate club event, or you don't see them join to cheer on teams and stuff like that. And so I think it's important that right now we focus on developing that community, and we focus on developing what the clubs have and how they reach out to students. So yeah, I think we just need to give them more resources, we need to give them more funding, and we just need to work with clubs more often and more thoroughly. Thank you.
Okay. Sebastian.
Thank you, Justin. I'd first like to address María Paula's point about the engagement with clubs. I completely agree. If you take IE athletics, though, there actually is a certain non-binding way to enforce and encourage students to do this, and that's by making them pay for part of the kits. We don't think that's a feasible way to do that, and we don't encourage them, and we think that should be covered by the university. But the university claims that this is a good idea, and this is how we've kind of tried to motivate them to stay in the clubs. So your idea about a non-binding contract, first of all, by taking away, by not letting them pay, they would even have less of an incentive to join. So I'm not sure what you would really recommend that students would be more inclined to have more of a commitment. I agree with Filiberto's point in the sense that you need to have a bigger crowd. Let's face it, I've watched the football team a few times and they've even won games and played fantastically in the league. They went up a league, but there were barely any supporters. And this is also a problem with the communication in the university of actually organizing transport. Not all of us want to spend a taxi or take the bus to go and see this game. So I think that's a lack of coordination. In terms of the clubs as well, I think that a few things have been or could be facilitated through the university. I know the Green Society has pushed countless things and have been going through mazes through the administration. Now that'll be even harder job due to the fact that we can't actually go to someone's office and nag them in a way to get something done. I mean, let's face it, emails can be deleted, they can be put to junk, and no one will really get that email. And I think that's why it's important that we have a student government that is insistent, that's persistent, and motivated. And I think Black Team really shows that by the sense that we are motivated to get partnerships. We haven't had a chance to do it all with academics and really go into the administration. But that is our next plan. Thank you.
Filiberto?
Yes, I think that most of you pointed like the right way, but at the end of the day, the question Justin rightly pointed is how can we improve somehow the commitment of not only of the people who actually do the sport, but also of the fans. At the end of the day, it's up to them to decide it. All we can do is incentivize them, for example, showing them when the events happen, how well we are doing. It's just informing them and creating a sense of community, because we cannot force people to do something. For example, the coding club. How can we? I remember that when I was in Freshers Week, coding club, they offered me, and I said, perfect. And I joined the coding club. But many people said, what is the coding club for? We can't incentivize people to go there. At the end of the day, I think it's a great club, for example, or the ecological club. But all we can do is somehow improve their communications. I don't think there's a certain way in which we can actually incentivize people. But please, if you have any other thing, just let me know.
We're now moving to
Okay.
the first question of the.
Okay, sorry. So now we're going to move on to individual teams, and we're going to ask you very specifically on some of your key platform positions, if you will. And in the sake of time, and just so that we get to ask everything that we want to ask, we will ask you, and we will be kind of mean and not let you rebut to what the other team is saying. So I would like to begin with Team Black. And it kind of is a prevalent theme within your proposals, specifically going to your partnerships. A majority of your campaign and majority of your kind of clout that you've tried to put forth, it has been premised on showing and referencing the partnerships that you already have in place. The question is, what happens to these partnerships in the case that you don't win? Will the students still get the benefits they are promised, or is there the availability of these partnerships premised on your success?
Thank you for your question. First, I'd like to say, I mean, if we didn't offer it to the university, obviously that would be counted as bribery. Our incentive is obviously to show the fact that our team has actually accomplished this, not only through hard work, but that we obviously, if we do win, will be in contact with these people. We already have that first contact, which is a clear advantage, especially when communication is so tough, because we're bombarded with so much information now online. So in terms of, yes, I think all students should be allowed to have that. Whichever student government is elected, I hope will not just discard the ideas of other teams. I think on the contrary, they should even consult the other teams and try and work together. I mean, as we know, for instance, if the government is whichever student government is elected, they will have to choose certain academic officers and people to support that. One of our team members, María, was working in the community development with the student government. I mean, this is key experience, and also you can't just expect to run a student government with 6 people. This is a university of 5,000 students, maybe more. Our intake for 2020 was meant to be 9,000 at the tower. That might be reduced, but we can't even feasibly think that 6 people will be enough to run it. In terms of our partnerships, yes, I think that they will honor it, and honestly, it's just in the benefit of the students. Our proof of these partnerships is just what we can actually accomplish, what we have accomplished, and our motivation to do so more than anything. Whatever is done and whatever can be done in terms of facilitating that, we want to show basically our skill and how we've managed to secure those. Thank you. I give the floor back to you.
Now the next.
Great. So to Adam for Team White, historically, the university has been very strict about financial aid and sort of where they allocate it. They've been handled on a case-by-case basis rather than a wholesale reduction in tuition. So what is your plan regarding the financial reevaluation policy, and how are you going to get the administration to do that?
So I think we need to clarify that we have not said that we agree. We don't think the university will reduce tuition, quite frankly. That's not something that they look to plan to do, and we don't mean to communicate that. What we do mean to communicate, though, is right now, because it's on a case-by-case basis, and because of how the university works, it's very, very slow to reallocate any funds. What we want to do is ask the universities that, since we have different resources and since such resources may not be used, like we won't have, if things are happening next year where we don't go to campus, we won't have student services needing to deal with the visas, we won't have student services needing to deal with some of these other issues. And so if we can reallocate some of those people to start handling this reevaluation system, if we start reevaluating a lot more students, and if we can start looking at the individual impacts that have happened to students, because a lot of students right now are struggling. And so if we can influence the university and beg them essentially, or demand in some sense, that they look at students' financial packages and they reevaluate them, I think that's something that we need and are obliged to do.
Great. And thanks.
Thank you very much for your, sorry, Justin. Thank you very much for your answer, Adam. And now this takes me to Team Red and Filiberto. So one of your proposals, this being the degree ambassadors, and as taken from your Instagram and your proposal video, will, and I quote, make IE actually listen to our concerns, end quote. You further propose that these ambassadors would consist of one male and one female representative, representing all members of a particular degree across years. Will there be an election process to choose these students? If so, how and when will this take place? And do you not see the possibility of having two reps coming from the same campus and or not fulfilling your gender representation quota?
Many thanks for your question, Ecab. So I think that it should be first the delegates who are chosen, and then it should be the delegates who actually are representing the class who choose the ambassadors, who will then represent them in a meeting. So we can, to a certain way, say, oh, this is more bureaucracy. Totally the contrary. Because at the end of the day, I've been delegate for 2 years, and whenever I went to a meeting, I literally went out the same way I came in. I would go with all my proposals, super nice, and they would say, oh, this, you have to go to this apartment, this to this department, and at the end of the day, you get nothing. So with this, we want to say, these ambassadors represent literally, I don't know, 600 students. So what they are going to do is, I don't know, somehow they will listen to us, because to the delegates, they don't, because we represent maybe 20 people. But if the BBA ambassador represents 600 students, now they will have to listen to the actual ambassador. And then answering to your question of why there will be a male and a female, of course there can be 2 male or 2 female. There's no problem in that. I just think that it should be quite nice because, for example, María and Paula pointed out the other day, oh, but it shouldn't be based on how competent we are. Yes, that's also perfect. But at the same time, there are many male competent people and many female competent people. So I don't think that just for 0.1 of a GPA and 0.2 of a GPA, that should be the decision. I think a male and a female can actually work together and it should be the best decision. But of course, it's up to change.
Filiberto, just to clarify, and I apologize for this, but how exactly will these 2 people be elected? So will it be the delegates that are elected first, and then the delegates select who the 2 representatives from each degree, or will it be from directly the students?
So the idea at the end of the day is that they will be chosen by the students, because the students choose the delegates and the delegates will choose the ambassadors. Because if you think about it, that's yeah, the answer. Thank you.
Okay. So moving on to Ricardo for Team Yellow. The reading for study week that you proposed seems to be in conflict with the rather strict scheduling that the university already has in place. So would you seek to implement this proposal for next semester or next spring semester or even like the following year?
Sorry, Justin, can you repeat the first part that I couldn't hear well? Sorry.
Yeah. So this reading or study week that you propose seems to be in conflict with the rather strict scheduling that the university already has in place. So do you seek to implement this proposal for next semester or next spring semester or the following year?
Sorry, I think that I'm lagging. Can you repeat clearly the first part? Sorry.
So the study or the reading week that you propose seems to be in conflict with the rather strict scheduling that the university already has in place.
I can understand the first part. Sorry.
Can you understand if I ask you, Ricardo? Do you hear me well?
It's something with the pronunciation. Sorry. Can you repeat?
Okay, yes. So the university has a rather, let's say, very strict scheduling for their academic year, no? So you also propose a study week of sorts, a week that gives students an ability to study for their exams, either finals or midterms, so that they can prepare. These two things seem to be in very big conflict. Do you plan to implement in first or in second semester?
So obviously it will depend on what happens with coronavirus, but the main idea with that academic proposal is to actually get away the problem related to having classes in the middle of your studies. So that way, mainly this happens on finals. You usually have to go to the last sessions, but then you have a final in the next hour. So we want to implement a clear schedule where they can actually, all the student body can actually study for their exams without worrying for the rest of the classes.
I understand the idea. The only question that I have is that it with the fact that our classes are planned out very well in advance. And this seems like something that doesn't seem very attainable, especially in the first semester. So are you planning on trying to get it through for first semester next year or for the second semester next year?
Well, from the first moment that we enter into the administration into our term, we will try to implement it. Obviously, it will depend if they already planned the classes for the next semester. If not, we will introduce it for the second one.
Takes me to the second question this takes me to the question for Team Gold. I almost forgot you, María Paula. So the question that we have for Team Gold, the first question that we have for Team Gold is that transportation and the transportation card seem to be a very big deal, similar to both yours and Team White's campaign. The question is, what are the difference between your plan and their plan? And, well, simply put, how come you can do it and they can't?
So the first thing I would like to establish is that our idea is completely different to the one that Team White is proposing. We know there's been a lot of controversy, and basically what we want to state is that we also want to acknowledge that we kind of phrased it wrong when we put it in the Instagram post, because this is a transportation card that would be only applicable to specific students. So we're talking about students that are active participants of clubs, so club leaders, or for instance, we're talking about people that are doing labs, people that have to travel a lot between Segovia and Madrid. And they have to pay this transportation from their own savings, their own pocket money. And in addition to this, I talked to some students, and our team got some complaints about, for instance, how lab students could get the money back from the administration, from this transportation cost. The issue was that when they brought the receipt, it would take more than a month to get the money back. And there's some people that have different economic situations. So the idea of the transportation card is for these specific students that have to travel a lot with university-related activities between the two campuses, and that way the process is more efficient than having to take money from their own pocket. I hope this clears any doubt. We're not asking for any reduction fees with Avanza or Renfe, because we know this is very, very unlikely.
Time for one last question from the Stork.
Great. So our last question will go to, this will go to everyone. So, you know, never mind. So this will go to Team Black. So you say that, like, when applying to our university, it should be necessary to consider things outside of the grades that any student has achieved during their high school studies. Yet IE is already home to one of the most holistic application processes out of many of the top universities. So how will having a student ambassador in the admissions office improve this? And how will this not lead to some sort of nepotism or favoritism in the certain high schools that students already belong to?
Thank you for your question, Justin. First, I'd like to make clear maybe a slight discrepancy in what we were trying to advocate for. The main point of this was that we actually have someone who represents not necessarily a certain high school, and I completely agree that would have certain favoritism, but rather that represents a certain education system. So someone who has gone through the French bac, someone who's gone through the A-level or the International Baccalaureate. This has more value. Not only, I mean, the university has plenty of competent people in the admissions process, we know this, but we think that it could help not only to increase the efficiency in terms of the admissions, but actually help students know you can't do this degree because your maths isn't at a good enough level. I have friends who have entered into BBA with not doing anything past GCSE maths. This is a relatively low standard. It's not something, it's an exam you do in England at 16. It's the basic level, but not something that our university, in my opinion, should strive for. I think that in that case, then the university should have a certain guideline and say, okay, if you do this, you need to take extra maths clinics, and that could be a club set up for that. Also, I think the idea of this admissions, let's say, mentoring or having a student in that kind of conversation allows for actual differences. We have multicultural, a huge variety of cultures who are represented in IE, and there are certain differences in terms of, okay, our education, our background, and that is why we think it's important, and not necessarily the point about certain favoritism for the high school. I hope I've made your point more clear. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Stork. We will now move to the fourth section of this debate, which will be comprised with team-specific questions by the debate club. I have run a randomizer before the start of the debate, and we will begin with team white, followed by red and black, yellow, and finally gold. For this section, you will have 3 minutes to answer, and then we will have 3 minutes for rebuttals. Adam, you have the floor.
And I'm asking questions now? Sorry?
No. So the question I have for you is regarding the startups. You have proposed to open code to provide spotlight and resources for IE startups, close quotation. What additional value does it add, considering that we already have initiatives such as the Venture Day, the Venture Weeks, the Startup Lab, among others? What will be the value added to these existing activities?
So that's a good question. I think all the things that the university provides so far are doing a decent job of helping these startups become legitimate businesses and become legitimate ventures. But right now, there isn't that connection with the IE community. There isn't this knowledge of what is going on with those startups. And so you see a lot of these startups that are started by students, and they're very cool and interesting ideas, but they're really only known by the students that are in that particular friend group, or they're only known within maybe that startup lab itself. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to provide this kind of spotlight for them. We'd like for them to be featured, and for their product or for their service or for whatever that is, to be featured on the student government Instagram, for the Stork to be able to give them whatever resources they need in terms of coverage, in terms of kind of exposure. And we want to be able to provide for them a lot more in terms of kind of capacity and what they can do and who they can contact. And so we want to be able to further connect them with IE's partners. And I think, Team Black has done a decent job of being able to go out and expand and show us that IE students have this really great entrepreneurship capability, but it needs to be kind of shown to other students, and it needs to become bigger, and it needs to become a more kind of familial aspect to it, I think.
You still have 1.5 minutes of your time. Would you like to make use of this?
Can I yield it to questions?
Yeah. Are there
I'd like to
any
do that,
questions or comments from other teams? Seeing none, we can move to the next question, which goes to Filiberto. So we can all agree that there should be more things being done for the environment, and that as a community we should definitely be greener and take an action on this. So can you name 3 measures that IE is already doing and 3 ideas that your team is putting forward to make a change on this? Please turn on your microphone.
Yes, many thanks for your question, Victoria. So our main idea regarding the IE red and green is that whenever the tower is implemented, we know that many people will go in cars, will go in taxis. So what we want to do is we want to reduce the emissions of carbon dioxide by implementing a bus that would leave somehow from the center of Madrid to the IE tower. So like these people will stop using cars and taxis every day, which is a small thing, but at the end of the day, I think it can really help. As well, we think that we need to reduce the amount of plastic offered in both campuses. And as well, I have a really close friend in the IE Ecological Club, and she's always complaining about how little help they get. So I really think we should help them out more. They are doing a great job. And we should also my idea is to permit them use the SG account once a month. So they give us a monthly report, once we are back, of course, about how we are doing, how we need to improve, what can we actually do better. And those are our main ideas with the IE red and green.
I actually have my own concerns about how this bus is going to be implemented, especially considering what we talked about in the previous debate when it comes to partnerships and reduction of prices from such a large companies as Schramm and Avanza. So would any team like to comment on this? Ricardo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Victoria. Filiberto, I wanted to ask you, what happens if the tower is not ready for next year and we actually need to stick with people moving around Madrid to every campus and here in Segovia?
Hey, many thanks for your question, Ricardo, as well. We have also thought, but in case the tower is not done, that we could actually help somehow get a sponsorship so that IE gets, for example, for the metro cards, instead of being 1.5 euro per traveling, they could be, for example, 75 cents, so that we don't use again more taxes. What we don't want to do is incentivize Uber to actually get again more and more clients of IE. What we want to do is make people go to the metro.
María, Paula?
Thank you. Honestly, Timber, I think you have good proposals, but I think IE Greener is one of the proposals that you lack. It's one of the least strong proposals you have, as you don't have like specific detailed plan that you're going to follow. And I think that is something that my team can, step in and provide some specific guidelines. Like, for example, we've talked with multiple clubs, and we would like to introduce a standardized thermal that comes in the welcome packs when you're a fresher. So it's part of the merch you get at the beginning. That way, for instance, the cup would be measured, and the cafeteria can actually charge you what a coffee would cost based on this plastic cup, and that way you can reuse it. And that way we also decrease the use of cardboard ones, even though they're more friendly than plastic ones. We also would like to strategically place waste classifying bins, because I've talked with friends of mine from design and from architecture, and the reason why they don't recycle as much is because outside their studio, they actually do not have the waste classifying bins. So I think that's something that, for example, I already have, that has the resources to do and can already implement. So could you please, I don't know, give us more of like a detailed plan of what specific strategies you would like to use?
No, yes, of course, I totally agree with your point. But I mean, what I want to do is big and original proposals, because what you're saying already there, if not, you can ask to Clara, because she's talked a lot about me about this. They're already implementing all those things, but I is not really helping them. So what we want to do is actually innovate, because what you're saying and your team goal is saying is very nice, but already the ecological club is trying to implement it. But for example, implementing a bus which will reduce the emission of the carbon dioxide, that's something that no one is doing. But for example, reducing or changing literally your points are very good, but the ecological club is already trying hard. That's why what I'm saying is that what we need to do is promote the ecological club. But many thanks for your idea.
Filiberto, we have to move to the next question, which goes to Team Black. We have noticed that most of your proposals are very Madrid-centered. Quoting your IG Live, one is in the city and one is in the mountains. So don't you think that this would even increase the division and even divide and separate our campus, considering that we're technically one university and two campuses and not the other way around?
Thank you for your question, Victoria. Yes, you're right on one hand, but it's the beauty of our university that we do actually have two campuses. Part of the reason, we have had initiatives to attract students from Madrid to come to Segovia. Madrid is a bigger city, it offers more in terms of culture, food, etc. There's no denying that. But last year we had the league conference in Segovia. We even had master's students coming to it. So I don't think that's a problem in terms of integrating. More might be the fact that, yes, we might need certain help in terms of transportation to encourage those Madrid students to come to Segovia. Same thing if, let's say, students want to go see a talk in Madrid. It happens to be that they're far more entertaining talks from ambassadors in Madrid because they might not have the time to actually go to Segovia. It's just an example. And another thing that I think is important to mention is that these campuses are not too different, but the people that go to the campus are different. Certain degrees start in Segovia for a reason. Architecture is based in Segovia because of the certain resources and the actual lab that is there. I think another important thing to say about the two campuses and the difference is a way to unite is one of our proposals, actually a green proposal, which does not, as the red team proposed, something would not, let's say, it would not depend on the coronavirus, but an IE or a green challenge that we can implement and kind of have both students from Madrid or Segovia competing towards to actually win a chance to work with an NGO. And this is something that will be critical in the future, especially if this coronavirus comes on and continues. And that is not limited to Green Society, but any other club that wants to create a challenge. We're spending more and more time alone in our homes, sometimes with our family, sometimes not, but we have vast amounts more time because our social life is restricted. And we believe that Black Team can really advocate that by creating challenges and encouraging the clubs to do that, by finding maybe partnerships, but also in general to inspire learning and to actually, let's say, boost our initiative and to boost our motivation. I think working, for instance, with an NGO in environmental is something that's fantastic, something that we can actually change, maybe in the future restrict the damage that such a pandemic could do. Same with logistics and organization. I don't think that the segregation of the two campuses would be bigger with these two different Instagram accounts. As I mentioned before, I think it can really help the actual efficiency of the two Instagrams and to really provide an idea of what is going on in each of the campuses. Thank you. I give my time back to Victoria. Or to your questions, if anyone wants to ask.
First entertain Adam's question or comment?
Thank you. I just want to ask Sebastian, because the way you've answered the first question, it just seems like you almost want to encourage the segregation between the two campuses. You've stated that you want to have two Instagrams and you want to have them separated. You have more events and more culture and more whatever in Madrid. And to be honest, that's rather hurtful as a student that's going to the Segovia campus to hear that we aren't as appreciated or that we don't have as much to offer, and that hurts, honestly. And so I'd like to ask, is there anything you actually have that is concretely made to try and help the students and to try and make the one university, two campus mentality something that's a reality.
First of all, I never said the Segovia campus was never underappreciated. Part of our partnerships do include Segovia. Uber Eats is universal and includes Segovia and Madrid. Part of the reason why Madrid has been a focus is because of Victor's contacts. Actually, those of you who are familiar with Segovia, we've actually just agreed on a partnership with Juan Bravo, sorry, which is the main bar on Plaza Mayor, which obviously helps in terms of our community. In terms of the advantages, there is no denying that sometimes it is easier to get speakers, but on the same time, I have teachers who love coming to Segovia. They love teaching because they love the mountains. You can't change people's character and people's will of a city person or a country person. Adam, you might have chosen Segovia for different reasons. I don't see your point in terms of hurting it. I think the point with the two Instagrams is to really reduce the amount of information that one Instagram account might get. The point about a student government is also to delegate certain responsibilities. And it's important to delegate it to other clubs because we cannot, 6 people, feasibly run the organization efficiently, especially as has been previously mentioned with all the bureaucracy that's involved. There needs to be certain delegation, and that is why we have these two presidents. So I will be the acting president of Segovia and Victor, the acting president of Madrid, and we'll be in constant contact to make sure that both students have the same opportunities. And I think that's crucial in terms of sport, in terms of academics. Just because maybe Madrid might have more football pitches than Segovia, that's not very easy to change, and it's not exactly something that we can. But on the other hand, we can make sure that the Segovian students do actually have a sports facility. They do actually have the best and the same quality as Madrid. And actually, one of the things we want to advocate for is that certain professors who are, let's say, they have the hesitance to actually go to Segovia because it's too much of an effort. We want to try and encourage the university to not necessarily give the professors and the faculty as much power in deciding who they teach. That's another thing. A lot of faculty only want to teach 4th years, which I do not think is fair. We should be entitled as 2nd, 3rd, or even freshmen to the best education that IE can offer. And that's basically the points what Team Black is trying to advocate for. And I think so far that we've made incredible steps in terms of community development, and the academic part will be only encouraged and only increase, especially if we are stuck in this lockdown.
We have to move to the next question, which actually goes to Team Yellow. From the debate club, we were actually very surprised and appreciated a lot your initiative about an MUN. But can you walk us through the exact process, how you plan to organize this conference, like the type of resources you will implement, or how this is going to be done, especially taking into account all the work that needs to be done to organize an MUN conference?
Okay, so thank you for your question. I think that the first thing that we need to do is to team up with the debate club, because I'm sure that is an appealing event for you, because all the big universities around the world actually have an MUN conference, and it's time for IE, with all the term innovation that we're doing, to actually have an MUN conference. So the first step, because from my part, I was actually the director of logistics in my school's MUN, and I actually organized 2 MUNs, same with María back in her school, where she was the Secretary General for more than 4 years. So the first step will be collaborating with the debate club. Then with all the clubs that want to participate, and as well with the people that are around all the student body, that they have experience how it's actually to work inside of the organization of an MUN conference. Then after we have this committee.
Sorry to interrupt you, but my question is actually more directed to the infrastructure per se, taking into account that IE might be lacking in that sense.
Well, these were partnerships, and in the case that we will need funding, because I could not pay, we will try to be self-sufficient. And I think that the facilities, we have it, because we have beautiful classrooms, we have beautiful buildings around Madrid. Even here in Segovia, we can do an MUN conference. So we think from Yellow Team that actually we can implement this MUN conference pretty quickly and pretty effective, because at the end, we're in one of the most beautiful cities in the world. A lot of universities are doing, so it's now the time to actually take the step and make a prestigious MUN conference.
Ricardo, Adam, you have the floor.
Okay, well, as one has had experience with the debate club actually going to these events and organizing delegates on behalf of the university in international MUNs, I can tell you that this is an extremely laborious process, and it is one that is extremely complicated. And the university right now does not seem to have, or does not seem willing to put in the effort and the time to go after an MUN. We've tried this before, actually, as Debate Club of Segovia. We've tried to host MUNs, and the university has said, fine, but you have to do essentially everything on your own. You have to do everything. You have to find the funding for it. You have to find sponsors for it. You have to make the communications for it. You have to find the students for the logistical problems. And so, at least for me, I don't see it as really feasible at this point in time, unless you put a lot of money and time and effort into this project. And it's one that I would appreciate if it were happening, but I'm not sure, honestly, that presently it's something that can happen. So how do you respond?
Thank you, Adam. So I believe that IE has amazing people, well-prepared people. As you, part of the debate club, you know that people are more willing to actually get involved in these kind of conferences around the world, even if it's in Tokyo, Madrid, or in Caracas, Venezuela. I'm sure that if we are well organized and we create a committee based on the experience of the debate club, and maybe even with the Stork's experience in communication, with the experience of everyone inside of the IE community that have worked inside of a MUN conference, I'm sure that we will achieve this. Apart from that, the funding, I think everything is done with effort. And if we have had amazing and incredible conferences like LEAP, and this year we were going to have actually a fashion show, I think that we can find partners that could be interested to actually work with the MUN conference. Obviously, this is attached to the circumstances that we're living now, because we need to wait until COVID is over. But I'm sure that the people will be excited to participate in this, and at the end, it will be a very successful conference.
Any other comments for Ricardo? María.
Okay, so as a fellow MUNer, I'm ecstatic that I would possibly have the possibility of implementing a Model UN. But I was also the president at my school of the Model UN Club, and apart from that, I organized also 2 or 3 conferences in my school, which has been doing it for more than 20 years. So it's not a fast process. It's not a conference you can do in a matter of months. It takes a whole year to plan it. So I would like to know what this self-sufficient plan of yours is to actually fund it, because to do it the first time, you actually need to get money. And I love the image you paint of all these people coming together. I love that. It would be amazing, but I mean, you cannot pull this through without the funding. So how are you going to get the initial, the initial sponsorship, knowing that that's the only way you could actually become self-sufficient?
So I think that, thank you, Maple, for your question. I'm sure that if Yellow Team wins, you will be more than attracted to the idea of working with the MUN conference. So basically, myself, I also organized 2 or 3 MUN conferences back in Caracas, Venezuela, and I know all the effort that it has to be put into the event to actually happen. The funding is something that, as you may know, as Adam may know, there's a certain revenue from the part of the delegates. Also, we can have sponsors, because as we have seen, we are a very appealing market for companies, as we have seen with the Black Team. So funding, I think that is not the main problem of the situation, but more that we need to be organized and work for sponsorships, as well as LEAP Conference has done it in the previous years, and they have successfully funded all the process of making the event.
Thank you, Ricardo. Now we're moving to the last question, which is for Team Gold. So, Maple, my question is actually more, I know that you're community development, but my question is a little bit more related towards academics. You have proposed to facilitate more exchange opportunities for every degree. And while I would support that and I would love to be part of that, I truly wonder how you're planning to execute that idea. So if you could walk us through the process and who would be involved in this.
Okay, so in reality, this proposal is phrased to have like the same exchange opportunities for all degrees. So the idea is that, for instance, IE is always introducing what we call baby degrees that don't get that much voice or don't get that much prominence, as IE was founded on the mentality that it is a business school. So it's obvious that there's a clear disproportion of options for some degrees that others don't get the opportunity. So of course, like I understand that you find very unfeasible that for us to have power to contact other universities and I don't know, get more power, because I mean it's very unlikely. Like it's not like we're gonna send an email to Harvard and be like, hey, let's partner up. Of course not. What we're trying to do is that universities that have an extremely high demand, so for instance, BBA students wanting to go to Australia and stuff like that, that they open up for more spots. So for more spots, and also that these spots are distributed evenly between the degrees. If the university obviously offers the credits that have to be validated by the university and by the Ministerio de Educación.
Have 2 minutes, pretty much. Would you like to use this?
Sure. I guess I understand why people are kind of skeptical, because there's been promises in past student governments that there's going to be more exchange opportunities for everyone. But I think that I should really focus all its resources in kind of exploiting those partnerships it has already made with other universities and trying to open up more spots. And that way we can also guarantee like a fair representation of like the baby degrees in getting those options, instead of for example, this GPA system, we would also consider maybe reevaluating how the criteria is met, and that way every degree can have like an actual chance of attending the plays in the university that they really want to go to.
Filiberto, you have the floor.
Yes, Maple, I think that your idea is quite good, but I need to say that I already, in a delegate meeting, asked for it because many people in our class wanted to go, for example, for Australia or California, and it's not possible. So what I wanted to do is, what are you actually going to do to increase these options? Because from what they told me in the delegates meeting, the director of my career is that it's not possible because there are certain students coming, certain students leaving. You can send them to different universities, but you cannot increase for example, the ones in Australia or the ones in, I don't know, in Paris, which are the most, or in Singapore, which are where the people want to go. But what are you actually going to do to improve or increase the variability?
Okay, so I think it's important to point out that there are some proposals that are very achievable. There are some proposals that will come into like the unlikely category, and there are just some proposals that are absolutely impossible. And I think that this proposal specifically, knowing all the partnerships that IE has already made, it could even fit into the achievable category. I think that the only thing that's missing is a group of people that are willing to push hard enough for like the university to actually see that this is not a need that only one degree is asking for. This is a need that I've seen students like whine. All my friends from second year, because I mean to stay the third year in Segovia, are very upset because my exchange is in fourth year. They were very upset that, for example, spots were taken. And if a partnership already exists and IE is already sending enough students, I think there could be a very likely possibility that they would be open to the idea. We're not asking for the double or triple, but if you just increase it by 3 or 4 or 5, I think that can already be called a very big advance.
In black.
First of all, Maple, I commend your idea, but increasing by 2 or 3 won't necessarily help when we have such a large increase of new freshers coming. I mean, just last year in Segovia, we had 800 alone, and that number keeps on increasing. So if it doesn't double, actually, we'll be at a detriment, if anything. Also, your point, I mean, do you also want to include a certain fairness for between the degrees, so that there should be a certain quota of the degrees, or all degrees should be treated fairly. So I'm not quite sure on your proposal whether you want to change that aspect of it. And I know this has been discussed in previous delegate meetings and voiced through a lot of the student body. And more to the fact that, I mean, do you want to also increase the amount of universities that are there available? And again, voicing what Filiberto has said, how are you really planning to contact those universities? I mean, IE obviously wants to offer the most they can, but its reputation is also limited to a certain extent, being such a new university for undergrad.
Thank you for your question, but I would like to emphasize that our proposal is called same opportunity of exchange for degrees. So as I said, we're not here to try to actually contact other universities and get new partnerships. I think that's the job of the IE administration. We can push the university to try to have those initiatives, of course, but at the end, our hands are very tied in that aspect. With regards to the second point you make about, I'm sorry, but wait, could you repeat it? That it was lagging a little bit. Thank you.
My first point was regarding the new intake of students. We have each year a vast amount of students, increasing amount of students that are coming, especially now with the new tower was meant to come. We have far more freshers than we used to. Last year alone in Segovia, we had 800. How do you plan to account for that? You said it could increase by 2 or 3 would help. Of course, it would help those 2 or 3, but generally that wouldn't even equate mathematically to what we have offered now. So, striving for double, not even getting that, how would that improve the situation? Thank you.
Well, with regard to that, I think that's something that the administration needs to consider. If I'm accepting more students, then obviously I need to attend their needs, of course. And if the needs of those students include exchange options, then that's something that the university has to deliver. This is not even something that I think the student body has even to say anything about it, because it goes within their competences. If they offer exchange for everyone, even though not everyone might do it, then they have to consider that as they increase their size, they're going to need more options, and they're going to need to satisfy those needs.
Since we still have a little bit of time, I would actually like to introduce an extra question that we had left from the second section, which is, why is your team the most suitable for the position? This goes for any of the teams. Especially, this is something that I think we should clear on before moving to the final remarks and the possible voting then. Adam.
Thank you. I mean, if you want to know why our team is qualified, I would just look at our LinkedIn pages, honestly, and look at what we've done as students within the clubs. I myself am a assistant editor-in-chief for the Stork. I'm a peer support facilitator. I'm a mentor. I'm a debate club leader. I'm a member of several different clubs. Our president works with Engage's club. We have people in the cheerleading squad. We have people that are, in the think tank and podcasts and stuff like that. And there's so much that our team has already done and how we've integrated within this community already. And we've already worked as class representatives, or we've worked as other members within the institution itself. And so we have the expertise and the knowledge already of how this institution works and who to talk to and who understands what and who needs to do what. Because I know right now there's a lot of students that when they have a problem, they try and go to one department, and then they're said, okay, I need you to go to this department, and then they're sent to another department and another department, and it just goes on and on and on. And we at least have the knowledge that, okay, these are the people I need to talk to specifically to get something done. These are the people that can give me the funds for something. These are the people that need to have, whatever signed in order for a document to get through. And we have that expertise. And I'm not sure, and I commend the other teams for their composition and all they've attributed and all they've done. I'm not sure if they have the same level of qualification, though.
We still have a short time for rebuttals. Ricardo, followed by Maple if we have time.
So sorry, it needs to be a question, or I can make my point.
You can just make a comment, or yeah.
So I think, and I agree with Adam, that experience is key. And if you go to our Instagram page, you will see that we are well qualified to actually take the student government and make it a really effective institution. Apart from this, I think that what you need to take into consideration is actually that passion plays a fundamental role in this election and in each team. Because if you go to the point inside of each candidate, you will need to see that each candidate has to have a kind of serviciality or passion for the IE community in order to give back what they have given to you. So I invite you all to go to our Instagram, IE Yellow Team, to see whatever we have, like everything that we have prepared, our passion and our commitment with this election, to show you that we are actually committed with the student government, and everyone here in our group, in our team, and in our community, a beautiful community that we have created, has the will to actually work for the community and make it a better place, because we're IE students that want to work for IE students. Thank you.
Ricardo, in this section, rather it has to be a shorter remark, so I get back to Adam to reply to the question or comment.
I mean, I do agree with Ricardo that there needs to be passion, and I'd say that Team White has perhaps more of that than any team right now. We have the cheerleaders, we have me, we have other people that have been working and trying so hard to make this community what it is and to try and make it better. We've worked hard within the Stork to try and give students more opportunities and to give them more voice and to give them more knowledge of what's happening in this university. We've created, we've had Abdul create the IE Think podcast so that students can have a voice and express their, what they want and what they want to see, and a whole bunch of other things on new platforms. And I haven't, and I'm sorry, Ricardo, I haven't seen things from this current student government. And so I'm kind of questioning some of that passion, to be honest. And I would like to express to everyone that there is a passion within Team White, especially. Thank you.
Mable?
Okay, so I think that what both of you, Adam and Ricardo, are saying is very important. It's important to show the students that you've been involved in uni, and it's also important to show that you care about them. And I think our team does that very well. Steffi, for instance, she's part of the Community Development Committee. Loti, he creates a bunch of events that integrate students of IE. Me, for example, I've been part of 180 Degrees Consultancy. I've been class representative for 2 years in a row, and I'm clearly planning on being possibly for the next 3 years, hopefully, if my class still trusted me. Farida, she's been the part of Mentorship Society. And Lucas, I mean, nothing shows more passion than Lucas loving football so much that he decided to integrate everyone in Segovia campus to play the sport they love, even though they're not part of a club. So if we're talking about passion, if we're talking about involvement, about commitment, I'm so proud of my team in that aspect, and I'm sure that my team is super equipped to deliver you some good proposals and to deliver you some change, and that you can actually see it happening at uni. I think this is something that everyone could physically witness happening, and I think that's what we need. Thank you.
Now we're going to move to the last section, since we don't have that much time left, but actually you will get time to expand on your ideas and why you think that you should be elected. For this you will have 1.5 minutes in total, a section of 7.5, and then after that we will hear from the Stork on their close marks. So we will begin with whoever raises their hand. Sebastian, followed by Adam.
Thank you. I think I'd like to comment because I didn't get a chance in the last part of how committed we are. I think it's extremely important that the student government is extremely social, and all of us are. All of us have speak different languages. We're integrated in all parts of the IE culture. We're qualified in the same senses. I think every team has wonderful aspects and clearly has shown motivation to this. I mean, all of us has made it to the final debate. All of us have put extreme amounts of effort into our Instagram. All of us have really tried to reach out. I think I'd like to commend my team on reaching out to so many of the clubs, to trying to hear the feedback and not only just listening to feedback, but acting on it, acting on what actually students need, actually on what students can have, and actually making that feasible for them. And that's clearly seen through the partnerships that we've managed to accomplish and our sheer motivation to get things accomplished for the students, to actually also to integrate the faculty. Let's not forget the faculty is extremely important in decisions we make and actually what we can accomplish with them. I think the students in general commend us. I mean, Victor, I mean, Maple, you mentioned Lotte was into the businesses and events managing. It's actually Victor's company. Victor works with them alongside their partners. They've managed to create that in Madrid. The same has happened with friends in Segovia. With Rave, you can't broaden yourself. There's so many ways on how we can actually act as a community. And all I can say is I'm extremely proud of what we've managed to accomplish and hope that the IE student body actually gives us the chance to accomplish more for the benefit of the students. And that is in every regard when it comes to sport, when it comes to academics, and especially community development. Thank you.
Sebastian, Adam, you have the floor.
Well, at this time, I'd like to kind of make a question posed to all the teams. I think it's something that's been important and that I want all of them to respond to in some remark. And so that's what I'm going to use some of this time for. My question is, how are you going to make this university care about this student government? Because I don't think we've seen that from the last few years, honestly. From a personal observation, while I like Vice Rector Larrañaga, in every single meeting, in every correspondence, in every discussion with him and the SG involved, he always referred to Mateo de Palma as the student president. Now, maybe that was because Huerta was on exchange, or maybe it was because he was the more or less working face of the student government. And second concerns this very election itself is its coordination was rushed and haphazard. Alternatives were proposed and rejected. We had two teams caught blatantly cheating, and we had one that said it was proud of it during the last debate. And, they were just given a warning. And so what I want to ask is, what do we do? What are the team's proposals to try and make this university care? I know in my case, regardless of the outcome of this election, I want to make sure our voices are heard, whether that's through a student government or student uni. I want to make sure, or a student union. I want to make sure that something happens this year. Thank you.
Filiberto, you have the floor.
I mean, Adam, thanks for your remark, but I think that's why we're all here, to change university and somehow make the student government more linked to students. Because, for example, I have a brother who is now in fourth year BBA law, and he has never voted for the student government elections, or doesn't even know what's the student government. Why is that so? Lack of communication, lack of involvement, lack of passion? I don't know. But at the end of the day, we need to improve that a lot, especially in the campus of Madrid, as I have seen that there is a larger lack of involvement. I'm not entirely sure, if I'm honest, how we can do that, but I think that's one thing we need to do for sure. And for that, we need two things. A team that is qualified, and my team is more than qualified. 5 of our 6 members have been delegates. Salva Pavlovich has founded a club. I helped found a paddle club, and I'm a really active member in every single law club. So at the end of the day, it's about having a team that is already committed and having a team that is approachable. And if you ask about anyone in our team, Saif is loved in the campus of Segovia, Sava is loved in the campus there. So what we need is to be an approachable team. And we need to be a team that is actually passionate. That's the only way that the students will take us seriously and will actually listen to us.
Since neither of you has raised the hand, proceed with María Paula. Oh, can you not hear me? Can you hear me better now? Okay. So we will entertain the last 2 speeches from the remaining teams. If you would like to raise your hand. Ricardo.
So we are in the last minutes of this debate, and I'm actually very happy with the whole organization, with the Stork, and I'm very grateful with the debate club as well, because I believe that this is the way that we change the student government. getting people involved, getting people interested on actually making proposals and implementing them. I believe that there is hope for this student government to actually become a great institution with the help with the Stork or even with the clubs in order to support them, to give them what they need, as well as with the student body. I have hope that we actually will change things in university, starting with bureaucracy, because I think that every single student member of any club, I think that anyone in the student body knows that the bureaucracy inside of our university is killing every institution. So that's where we will actually initiate our process as a student government, to try to organize well and make clear who is in charge of what. Furthermore, I have hope that actually the yellow team achieves all of the proposals. Being part of the last student government, I met many people that are interested on actually helping the community and actually contributing with their own self to contribute with the whole student body. I want to thank you all. Thank you, Stork. Thank you to the debate club, and I hope that you vote Team Yellow.
Ricardo, finally, María Paula.
I have a question though. This is a closing statement, right? This is not a closing statement. This is just to close up this part.
No, it is. No, it is.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
We have come to an end.
Okay, sorry. You're kind of disappointed. Actually, I want to be honest for a second. I think that all the student governments in the past have done a good job. And the reason why they've done this is because they went through with the responsibilities that are established in the guidelines. And I firmly believe that every team right here that I'm surrounded by will actually do that. They will do a good job. But I think that what makes my team different is that we're willing to take the extra step. We're willing to take we're willing to take time from our personal life in order to invest it into the student government. And I think that's the only reason why students haven't been able to experience the change in the past, because maybe other governments have not taken that extra step. But everyone that knows Loti, Farida, Blanca, Luca, Estefania, or me knows that we're students that we're committed to making a change. You guys know we care. And that's the whole reason why we're running. Because we're tired of seeing inaction, we're tired of waiting, and we're tired of not having our voices be heard. So I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank you guys for enabling an online campaign. It's impressive to watch, and it was a very fun experience. And I just hope that you vote for the team that's actually going to change IE. And come on, guys, like, we're living in a pandemic. It's just time to bring some gold in. Vote gold.
So much, María Paula. We have now 3 minutes of short remark from the Stork before we close this debate.
Hello, hello. Can everyone hear me? I'm back. Okay, cool. Well, first and foremost, I would like to thank absolutely all of you, all of the teams that are here with us, not only for doing an immense amount of effort to make sure that we know exactly what you stand for and what you want to accomplish, as well as for keeping it relatively civil when it came to both these discussions and the discussions in the campaign overall. Other than that, I would also like to very much thank the debate club for organizing all this and creating the structure for this. None of this would be possible without you, and more specifically within the Stork, without Laura Ortega, as well as Francia Morales and our little protege Justin, all of which spent hundreds and hundreds of hours trying to make sure that all this could work and covering all of your teams, as well as the social media team in particular. We would like to thank you also very much for acting very for actively communicating with us, and for all of the campaigns that have specifically noted that they want to interact with us, and overall just thanking you for a really good campaign, how everything was run. You can expect to see a nice little recap article and a fact check article tomorrow morning, just to make sure that you guys are in check. And other than that, thank you very much.
So much, Ecab. On behalf of both Debate Club Madrid and the Debate Club Segovia, we can only say the same thing, and thank you all for such a committed process of campaigning online, for reaching out to the people and making sure that everyone knew what you stood for. We also want to thank the Stork for helping us organize this and for making sure that our community is properly informed of what is going on in this campaign, especially when it comes to accurate information. We would also like to thank Campus Life for providing us with a platform and the logistical support to organize this. And well, I can simply close by saying that this is my time to talk to the audience and tell them that this is your moment. This is the moment when it's in your hands to change IE, to see democracy play out, and to see if we can actually see a change from this year to the next one. So I just want to invite you all to take part in this voting that will begin on the 23rd and end on the 26th. And let's hope that the best team wins. Thank you all.
And if I could add really quickly to Victoria, though it may be very tempting to all of the student body to vote for their friends and to vote for people you know, these teams, please do the respect to each of the teams to consider their proposals, to consider what they're putting forth, more so than the person that is on stage. It is very, very, very tempting to vote for the person that you know and that you see in class, but ultimately it's about who's going to get something done and who is going to act in your best interests. So don't look at the person, look at what they're saying. And other than that, it is your vote, it is your ability to voice your opinions in any way that you can, and make sure that you use it wisely. Thank you.